Hi and welcome to Movies Suck. I've just been having a peruse around on the internet seeing what's going on, and I came across this story on Digital Spy. It says, Star Wars creator George Lucas felt betrayed by the new trilogy plans, Disney boss admits. So, the CEO of Disney has admitted George Lucas felt betrayed by plans for the new Star Wars trilogy. In his recently released memoir, The Ride of a Lifetime, Lessons learned from 15 years as CEO of the Walt Disney Company, Bob Iger told how discussions about the rebooted trilogy with Star Wars creator grew complicated when the Disney board decided to err slightly from George's initial ideas about what the trilogy should look like. And from what we've seen, we can see why. This followed Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm back in 2012, and the company buying George's plot. At some point in the process, George told me that he had completed outlines for 3 new movies, Bob wrote. He agreed to send us 3 copies of the outlines. One for me, one for Walt Disney Company's Senior Executive Vice President, General Counsel and Secretary. What? That's a hell of a title. That was Alan Braverman. And one for Co-Chairman and Chief Creative Officer, Walt Disney Studios' Alan Horn, who had just been hired to run their studio. Alan Horn and I read George's outlines and decided we need to buy them. Though we made clear in the purchase agreement that we would not be contractually obligated to adhere to the plot lines he had laid out, he knew that I was going to stand firm on the question of creative control, but it wasn't an easy thing for him to accept. I imagine it wasn't. I mean, Star Wars has been George Lucas's baby since, when was A New Hope released? 1977? I imagine that was really hard to let go of all that. So he reluctantly agreed to be available to consult with us at our request. I promised that we would be open to his ideas. This was not a hard promise to make, of course. We would be open to George Lucas' ideas. Yeah, I can imagine they were way open to George Lucas's ideas, right to the moment where they thought, these ideas are shit, let's throw them in the bin and do whatever we fucking feel like. That's what it seems like anyway. But like the outlines, we would be under no obligation, which they clearly were under no obligation to do anything that was good for the actual Star Wars brand. They are only obligated to do what they wanted to do as Disney, since they clearly didn't care about this stuff. They just wanted a franchise with a good name that they could just make whatever they wanted for. But anyway, I digress. Recalling breaking the news to George that they were going down a slightly different route in a meeting, Bob added, George immediately got upset as they began to describe the plot, and it dawned on him that we weren't using one of the stories he had submitted during the negotiations. In the first meeting with him about the future of Star Wars, George felt betrayed, and while this whole process would never have been easy for him, we had gotten off to an unnecessarily rocky start. I bet they had. I mean, we've all seen what has happened to Star Wars. If they didn't use any of his plotlines, he left them 3 film plotlines. Now, they obviously deviated away from that plotline from any one of the films, because as they say in this story, they didn't use the plotline from any of the 3 that he gave them. So they did nothing that was related to what he had come up with. So you can understand why George Lucas was very upset, because they decided to just throw out everything he had built, everything he had designed, everything he was imagining for the series. He thought he was leaving them with like 3 films and they would follow along similar lines, but they did nothing like that. They made up their own stuff, and that stuff was, as we've seen, really crappy. From the horrible, horrible, horrible remake that was The Force Awakens. We all know that was just a rehash of A New Hope, and done extremely badly, with awful characters that nobody liked, especially the main character that just about everybody who has a brain and is able to use those brain cells to think in a way that is logical and sensible, hate. All these characters were absolute rubbish. And then you got the travesty that was The Last Jedi. God, do I need to go into detail of why that was such a travesty? Why that is just about the most hated franchise film ever made? Do I? No, of course I don't. Because unless you're like 15 years old and that's one of the first Star Wars films you've ever seen, you've seen good Star Wars films, you've seen these great characters. And the fact that they didn't give a damn about them, especially Luke Skywalker of all people in the Star Wars franchise. Oh, I cannot understand why you would want in the first place to buy the Star Wars franchise and then screw with it so badly, destroy all that nostalgia, which is what they're trying to use to sell the goddamn films. I mean, everyone knows that George Lucas made all his money out of toy sales, but if you can't make people like the films or like anything in the films, you're not going to sell toys, are you? People are going to be like, yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, a whole bunch of those horrible BB-8 robot things got sold, but other than that, I can't imagine people wanted much to do with this stuff. In any case, George Lucas certainly didn't want to have much to do with it. And I imagine he completely washed his hands of the whole thing and said, look, okay, yeah, do whatever you want. I'm out. See you guys. And personally, I'm out too. I'll be surprised if I actually go to see the new Star Wars. I am going to go see the new Star Wars film. I was just saying I'm surprised. I'd be surprised if I actually do see it, but I am going to go see it. I am probably going to hate it, but we live in hope. A hope dashed hard against the shores of a barren wasteland that used to be Star Wars. Oh well. This is Movie Sucks signing out. Leave a like, subscribe, and all that stuff. And I will catch you on the flip side.